Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our REDSHORT webinar. Today's webinar, we will be discussing dark web trends. And if you're interested in a written report of this material that we're going to brief today, you can find that later today at redskyalliance.org at the link on the slide. Last May, we did a REDSHORT on dark web trends that covered the first half of 2021. And this presentation is a follow-up to that, where we will discuss the trends we saw during the second half. Just a little information about our dark web data set. We've been developing that since late January 2021, and this is data that we make available to our customers to perform searches on the dark web. And this is done using either a Kibana web application interface that you can type search terms into directly, or using APIs. And this allows analysts to search the dark web without the need for them to set up the infrastructure needed to safely navigate the Tor network. Now here you see some numbers from last May. Since then, we've increased the number of sites that we're monitoring to 79, and we have over 1.3 million data points to date in our collection. The dark web sites that we collect from, that list of sites evolves over time as new sites come online and older sites shut down, but we maintain a historical record of all those decommissioned sites. And lastly, we also take suggestions from our customers. If we're not collecting from a site that they would like to see data from, we'll add that to our collection. So we've developed some custom processes to capture text data from dark websites. We don't extract images or our binary data, just text. And then we parse that information and add that to our Cyber Threat Analysis Center, also known as CTAC. And CTAC uses Elasticsearch, which makes querying the data extremely easy. And then we can run analytics on that data using Kibana. Oops, could you go back a slide, please? And then other data delivery options we provide are API-based, so that our customers can integrate data into their own analytic processes. And everything you're going to see here today is generated from CTAC, the Kibana instance. So if we look at the pie chart here, it shows the collection broken down by site type. And we currently ingest data from dark web forums, marketplaces, and ransomware sites. So as you see here, discussion forum posts do make up a large part of the content. And while we certainly do find a lot of noise on those discussion forums, there is valuable information to find there related to cyber threats. For example, at the bottom of this slide, we see a post from the Best Carding World forum that exposes a number of Netflix credentials. And it also exposes the payment method that Netflix customer used for billing, which in 2 out of the 4 cases here is PayPal. And as we all know, password reuse is a big problem. And if those compromised Netflix users reuse that same password to log into PayPal, it's very likely that their PayPal accounts have also been compromised. And this is just one of many forums that we collect data for. Here we see the top 5 most active sites for each of the site types I just mentioned. For discussion forums, we saw XSS at the #1 spot replace Chan as the most active forum. Chan slipped to the #3 spot here compared to what we saw in May. The DNM Avengers forum dropped to the #4 spot, and Rootor took the #2 spot. Dread forums dropped from #3 down to #5, decreased activity there on the Dread forums. And then the number 4 and number 5 most active forms that we identified in May, which were Simple Machine Form and the Hub Form, they dropped off the top 5 ranking entirely. Looking at marketplaces, White House Market saw an increase in activity in the last half of 2021, displacing UAS RDP Market for the number 1 spot. UAS RDP deals strictly in the sale of compromised remote desktop protocol credentials for hosts that are publicly accessible on the internet. Saw a decrease in activity in that in the second half of 2021, so it's lowered it down to the number 2 spot. 0 Day Today dropped to number 5, replaced by ASAP Market in the number 3 spot, and Cartel Market stays at the number 4 spot. And lastly, ransomware sites. These are owned by groups that steal data from victims and then post it for download, in addition to ransoming encrypted data from the victim. The most active that we have seen, this list largely remains unchanged from our observations in May, with the exception of Nephilim moving up from number 4 to number 3. And then the Abaddon ransomware group, which was at the number 3 spot, dropped off the list entirely. And then a new ransomware group, Grief, came into the number 4 spot. It's also worth noting that the Revil ransomware site was shut down after a Russian FSB enforcement operation in late January of this year. While preparing for this presentation on February 7th, excuse me, Red Sky analysts discovered this notification posted on the UAS RDP market site, indicating that it had been closed forever by the Russian government. The page reads in part, Management K of the BSTM of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia warns theft of funds from bank cards is illegal. The page goes on to cite articles 272 and 273 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation, which makes it illegal to steal or destroy data or create, distribute, or use software that is knowingly intended for data theft or destruction, or for, quote, neutralizing data protection mechanisms. Traditionally, cybercriminals have been allowed to operate in Russian territories as long as they did not target Russian organizations. It's unclear as to the motivation behind these takedowns by the Russian authorities. So looking at the most active marketplace categories, we see digital goods has replaced web applications at the top of the list. Examining the data from the digital goods categories shows that it encompasses everything from instructions for committing fraud and identity theft, as well as account credentials and stolen databases. Right there we go. Thank you. Also software keys and stolen credit card information. You can see a small sample of the digital goods category listings on the right half of the slide. And also from this slide, you'll see that we have price data on digital marketplace items as well. So if anyone's interested in doing a price analysis of goods being sold on the dark web marketplaces, we have data for that as well. Among the other categories, we can see a strong emphasis on fraud, credit card theft, and compromised credentials. Looking at the most active users on the top 5 most active marketplaces, unfortunately, we were only able to include marketplaces that actually publish vendor names on their goods. Not all marketplaces do. But we see some users operating on multiple marketplaces. For example, the user Empire Shop is active on both ASAP marketplace, and White House market. Last May, we observed another user operating on multiple marketplaces going by the name of Drunk Dragon, but that user seems to have decreased activity on the White House market since last May and is only active on the ASAP market from what we can see here. Likewise, the vendor Gold Apple seems to have decreased activity on both World Market and ASAP market from what we observed last May. Operating on multiple markets with the same account name, like Empire Shop is doing here, is likely done to build brand loyalty with customers, but using that same name across multiple sites also makes it easier for analysts to track threat actor activities across those multiple marketplaces. Let's take a little bit at ransomware and then some correlation that we've seen across our other data sets between dark web and our other data sets. Here on the left, we see a list of domains for the most active ransomware listings from the second half of 2021. And while this list is interesting, the correlation I think is even more interesting. And this is a correlation we found between our breach data collection, which contains leaked credentials, compromised credentials. So, and it really illustrates powerfully how a single compromised set of credentials could lead to a ransomware attack. So at the bottom of the slide, we see a record from our breach data collection showing a compromised credential set for a domain belonging to a law firm. And this record is dated July 2020. Then in the upper right portion of the slide, in January 2022, we observed the same law firm as being a victim of a ransomware attack on the Marketo ransomware site, where stolen data is auctioned to the highest bidder. To be clear, these are the only two indicators we have found in our threat intelligence data related to this law firm. And we must be careful not to assert causation because we cannot be sure that the leaked credentials were used in the ransomware attack, but it's definitely a possibility, especially with the tendency of users to reuse passwords across multiple login accounts. Thank you. That's all I have for today, and I hope you enjoyed the material and found it useful. If you have any questions on this subject, you can contact us at Jim McKee, via Jim McKee rather, at jmckee@wapaclabs.com. And if you're not a member yet, please sign up on our portal, redskyalliance.org. It's a free membership, and it will give you access to a variety of Red Sky Alliance content, including the information you saw here today. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.